What's going on, YouTube? Huge news just announced by the UFC. It's pretty late at night, but UFC just announced that Rachmanov versus Ian Garry is on, right? UFC 310 co-main event. This is absolutely crazy because they're both undefeated. This is obviously coming after. Okay, this is after obviously after coming after Bilal pulling out with a foot infection. Rachmanov was looking to stay on the card. Ian Garry was calling for this fight. All right, they were both calling for an interim fight, right? It doesn't say that it's for an interim belt. I would guess that it's not for an interim belt, right? Even though they both, I would say they both kind of deserve a title shot. Um, but it's kind of hard to say because Ian Garry, right? His last fight was Michael Venom Page. It wasn't like super good, right? He beat Jeff Neal. That was his fight before. He beat Jeff Neal. Um, kind of a big, big decision. He was scheduled to fight Buckley too, which is crazy. So, I mean, he's going from he obviously pulls out of that fight, right? Just goes to fight Rachmanov, who's a bigger name, right? Higher rank than Buckley and Ian Garry. So, I mean, I would do the same thing, right? The Ian Garry said that his main goal is to get to the belt, right? He wants to get to the belt any way possible. So, getting there, right? You have to fight the bigger guys. You have to fight the better names. Buckley's also on a good run, but I mean, it's Rachmanov, right? Someone that's undefeated, someone that's kind of like he was gonna fight for the belt, right? So if you go out there beat Rachmanov, right, you're fighting for the belt next, right? Or maybe you are fighting for the interim belt, right? They haven't announced completely if he's gonna fight for the interim belt or not, but I would say they're both kind of ready for it, right? Obviously Rachmanov has been on a absolute tear, just finishing left and right everyone in the division. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Ian Garry. He has one finish, I think, in the UFC. Yeah, one finish. It was her first fight. Every single fight since then has been a decision, which is kind of crazy. But he's someone that it's kind of interesting talking about the fight. He's someone that kind of finds a way to win no matter what. So like I kind of look at him like how I looked at Dricus Du Plessis, right? Someone that I was like, oh, he's not that good. Like maybe he can beat some of these guys, probably be top 10, right? But like, I don't think he'll ever get to the belt. And we saw what happened with Dricus, right? Obviously it's a different scenario for him, right? Because he was always fighting without being able to breathe through his nose, right? And then finally got nose surgery and was able to finally breathe through his nose and then became a champion, right? But um, I don't know. It just Ian Garry always finds a way to win, right? I was scrolling through Reddit and like everyone was saying like, okay, so like how does let's talk about it. How does Drake or how does Rachmanov actually win? Because he can win in any way, right? And it's interesting to see that because like that's the way that I thought Izzy was gonna win, right? Like the only way that Izzy was gonna lose to Dracus Du Plessis was by getting wrestled, right? And that's not what happened, right? Obviously, he did get submitted, but he wasn't getting wrestled the whole time. Dracus was standing with him, hurting him, or maybe not hurting him, but landing shots. And same thing with Izzy and Sean Strickland. I was like, okay, Izzy's a way better striker than Sean Strickland. Strickland's not going to try to wrestle him. So how does Izzy lose this fight, right? And he got outstruck, right, by Strickland. So it's like I said, a similar situation, right? Where Ian Garry just always finds a way to win. Him versus MVP, right? I thought MVP was a more like flashy striker than Ian Garry, so he was just gonna dictate the fight and to take the win any way that he wanted, and that's not what happened, right? Same thing with Jeff Neal. I was like, Jeff Neal's a heavy hitter, right? He can just put the pressure on Ian Garry and he's gonna knock him out, and just it never happened, right? So it just kind of depends on who shows up that night. We saw what happened with Jeff Neal and Rachmanov, right? Just last year, Jeff Neal was landing big shots on Rachmanov, right? Was able to cut him, was really putting the pace or putting a fight to Rachmanov. Obviously, he came in a little heavy, but I mean, it was still right. Rachmanov's 30, Ian Gary's 26. Either way, I think we're going to see this fight again, right? Well, no matter what happens, if Rachmanov wins or Ian Garry wins, we're going to see this fight again, right? I don't think I was saying this for a long time that I think Rachmanov is going to be someone in the division, kind of like a Khabib that just is undefeated, right? It's super hard to fight him, right? Obviously, we see it now where people just do not want to fight him, and the like it's the same case with another fighter in the division, I believe. But yeah, people just do not want to fight him, and so it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this fight. I think it's a good fight. I think it's obviously a big fight, right? Because people want to see. I think people want to see Ian Gary lose, right? Just because of how he acts, like tries to be like this, the next Conor McGregor without any finishes, right? Just getting a bunch of decision wins. But he's still, I mean, his fights have been lately, they've been pretty boring, right? As now that he's fighting better guys. But hopefully this is going to be a good fight. I think Rachmanov is always, I mean, clearly he's always trying to get a finish, right? We saw it with his last couple fights where he's just dominating these guys. I personally kind of agree. If you're gonna ask for my decision, right? I kind of agree that, or my like decision on the fight. I think it's going to be the way that Rachmanov kind of dictates the fight, right? He can go whatever way he wants to with that fight. It's just going to be how can Ian Gary, how is he going to strike? How good is he going to be striking on his back foot, right? And if I'm Ian Gary, right, I'm trying to put Shavkat on his back foot, but it's going to be so hard because Shavkat is also a good wrestler, right? So he's going to try to take down Ian Gary, but Ian Gary has good jiu-jitsu, so like I don't know. I think and Rachmanov also kind of struggled to take down Wonder Boy, but I Wonder Boy is one of the best uh, defenders for wrestling, right? He has one of the best takedown defenses. So like, I don't know. It's kind of a coin toss, right? It's once you start thinking about the fight and like what can actually happen. Um, it's kind of hard to say who's gonna win. I still, if I'm probably gonna bet on this fight. If when I bet, I'm probably gonna bet on Rachmanov by a finish. As to what finish, I don't know. Probably just Rachmanov either finish, right? Just a finish, right? Just KO or submission. Just because I think Rachmanov is going to be, like I said, one of the fighters that one of the champions that just kind of holds the belt for a long time and just is super active. Hopefully is super active. He seems like he's going to be super active and just holds the belt for a long time. No one in the division can be able to beat him, can figure him out, and I just think Rachmanov's on that level. But this whole card is just becoming an even better card, right? It was already decent. I thought it was going to be decent with Pantoja and Kai, and then obviously Suryagan and Volkov. But you had some other fights down here: Luque, Nick Diaz, Imanov, Sterling, Anthony Smith, Dominic Reyes. This is crazy. I think Dominic Reyes should destroy Anthony Smith, but we'll see what happens. And then Brian Battle being on this card. I'm a huge fan of Brian Battle. I have been for the last like not since he won Tough, but like maybe a fight after Tough. I was a fan of Brian Battle, just because for Tough I bet against him, but also I didn't know his story, and then after I heard his story, and yeah, but that can be part of a different video. But I think this card's gonna be crazy good. You even got Cho and Landwehr. I think this card's gonna be good. Adding this fight kind of makes it a really good pay-per-view, to be honest. Because without this fight, I don't know if it would be such a good pay-per-view. It's still a stacked card, right? They always try to make the last pay-per-view a really big card. It's interesting. Kobe Covington versus Buckley.